Welcome back, everybody, to ND and Free, the podcast, a podcast and media platform that explores how NDers can live their truth and feel free in their lives. We hear from coaches, therapists, experts, and fellow NDers from all over the world. I'm Owen Morgan, a wellbeing coach, speaker, and writer. I have over 10 years' experience in the wellbeing sector and have interviewed over 500 people across 4 podcasts. I received my ADHD diagnosis at 41, and it changed my life. My mission is to explore how the human spirit and understanding our whole self can bring us a life full of possibilities. So guys, breaking news, we have another guy on the show. I can't believe it. We have a man, and he's here with us today. We have the amazing tattoo artist, father, and AuDHD'er Daniel Katona, an inspiring ND advocate, and overall awesome guy, because we chat loads off the podcast, and we're all mostly into the same stuff, which was amazing. So welcome to the show, Dan. How are you feeling? Have you done podcasting before? Let the audience know. How are you feeling?
Hi, I've never done a podcast in my life. Never been interviewed for anything, I don't think. Maybe I think the furthest has gone is a little newspaper snippet for a tattoo studio I worked in a few years ago, and that's about it. So I've been really looking forward to this. Really looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. And it's a weird thing to say, but I'm always proud of people who just take the leap. And I'm glad that they're happy to do it in this space and they feel safe with me. So thank you first and foremost for being willing to come on, because you've got so much to share, and you're really inspiring. So I'm hoping we're going to get all of that out in the show today.
Thank you. Well, thank you for inviting me on, because you reached out to me. So
Yeah.
it was really nice for someone to want to hear me talk. So thank you.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. I handpick my guests, everybody. If you didn't know already, I track them down and I cultivate that relationship over time. It's just how the show goes. So, Dan, give us some context here. So I've done a little opening there for you, but what does life look like right now? Kind of what are you up to? Whatever feels comfortable. Set the scene for your life.
So my life is busy, busy and chaotic, but I love it. Absolutely. So I'm a single father. I have a 4.5-year-old boy, who I do everything for. He's like, as in everything in my life, everything that I do, everything I do for myself even, is all based on how it's going to be best for him and make sure he's got the best best life I can provide for him, really. So so I have him a few days a week, every week, do most of the school runs and all that sort of stuff. I am a tattooist, as you mentioned, so I've got my own tattoo studio. I've been tattooing for 13 and a half years now. I've been a body piercer for about 17 years as well. So, sort of spent half my life in tattoo studios. So, yeah, I've got my own private studio, and outside of that, try and do everything you're told to, get enough fresh air, eat right, go to the gym, all that sort of stuff. And I also try to make a bit of content, just sort of filling people in about neurodivergence, specifically autism and ADHD, and just sort of giving people the information that you're not really told. Telling people, oh, you experience this. This could be actually a trait of autism or ADHD that no one's ever told you about before, and trying to help people just feel a bit more seen and heard, really.
I love that, because there's only so much we can learn from the lists, isn't it? Here's a list of traits. There's only so much we can learn there. There's nothing better than hearing somebody say, this is how I experience it. And it's so particular and niche that people, oh my God, yeah, that happens to me. And I love the community out there on social media. I know it can be toxic on social media, but I think the ND community on there is incredible. And we can all help each other through this. Do you feel there's an element of that, kind of like, I feel like you help me, I help you on this journey through the content we create?
I think so, definitely. So I haven't got a big following or anything, but the following I do have is so important to me already. I've had many people comment. Just the phrase I hear the most is "I feel seen," and every time I hear that means the world to me. It's nice to know that, because I only got sort of informally diagnosed about this time last year, and then only really started pursuing things sort of from there, really, and things sort of turned around pretty quickly. But I'm quite self-aware, so I would notice things. You question everything. You think, oh well, is this because of this? Is this because of neurodivergence, or is this just me, or is this how everyone experiences life. And so the more I started digging, the more I noticed, okay, this isn't sort of your typical sort of neurotypical experience. I wonder how many other people feel like that. So I just started putting my experience out there. And then I'd get people, oh, this is me. I got diagnosed 10, 20 years ago, and I never knew this was because of neurodivergence. And the more people that started thanking me for saying they felt seen, I don't know, it just felt really nice. It's just such a, yeah, like you said, it's a great community, and everyone just wants, everyone I've come into contact with just seems to want to help everyone else and understand themselves at the same time.
Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. I encourage people to go and check you out. Links are in the show notes, guys. So you touch on a little bit there, but kind of what made you feel? What was it? What moment was it? Pivotal scene where you were like, hang on a second, am I neurodivergent? Because we can spend our whole lives with all these judgments. I'm broken and I've got anxiety and why can't I cope? And we don't know why. What happened? What made you think to look into that as an option for you?
So my whole life, I've struggled with my mental health. From the age of 14, I've been on various sorts of medication, SSRIs, antipsychotics. I've seen psychologists, psychiatrists. I've been in and out of therapy, all sorts. Um, and then it was about a year and a half ago. I had a client in. I was tattooing someone, and they were late. They were late by about 3 minutes, just. And they got to me. Oh, I'm so sorry. So sorry. I'm running a bit late. Traffic. And I went. Well, I was about to go home, and I struggled to look at them, to talk to them, and I was in such a foul mood. And I realised every time someone's a little bit late, or the flip side, if someone knocks on the door 5 minutes early, it throws me off, and I didn't. I felt like I just, this uncontrollable sort of like, but unnecessary sort of anger, and sort of this isn't how things are supposed to go. You're supposed to be here, not at 10:58, not at 11:02, at 11 o'clock exactly. And I couldn't work out. Anyway, I said to my client, look, I'm really sorry if I come across as rude. I don't mean to be rude. It really throws me off when people are late, even if it's only a couple of minutes. She said, are you sure you're not autistic? Just as sort of as a throwaway comment, because she's got a child that is autistic, and I think she's been diagnosed as well. So I said, of course I'm not. What are you on about? Didn't think anything of it. And then I was speaking to one of my cousins, who also is neurodivergent, autism, and ADHD. Can you believe this client said, say, are you sure you're not autistic? And he went, oh, we thought you knew. Excuse me. Oh yeah, it's no secret. Like it's no secret. You're clearly autistic and have ADHD. Like you're like the poster child for it. What do you mean we knew? And apparently it's sort of not so much a secret amongst everyone else. I was just the last one to know. So I'll be honest. Before I knew, or before anyone had said anything to me, I still sort of viewed autism and ADHD as sort of your stereotypical cliche, what was thought of back in the 90s, that if you've got autism, then you are, you either really struggle with life, or it's like Rain Man sort of situation. If it's ADHD, then it's you're constantly hyper and you're the naughty child. And because I've got let's say I've got family that are neurodivergent, but because it's not something I ever really needed to look into deeply, I didn't. And it wasn't until those comments were made that I then thought, right, let's dive into this. Let's have a look. And then the more you look into things, the more you can relate to a lot of things, and the more you realise that okay, not everyone does experience things like that. Not everyone does feel like that. And that's sort of how I got the ball rolling, really. So sorry, a bit of a tangent there, but but I hope that sort of answers that question. But that's sort of really what led me to it.
No, that was perfect. Thank you. And just to honor all of those humans that walk into our lives and suddenly, our life pivots. And I don't think these people realize that just some flippant little comment actually is like a game changer for so many of us. So I just want to honor every human out there that has that story. Normally it's our kids. It'll be our kids, won't it, that are going through assessment or are being seen for it. And you're like, oh, hang on a second. They say this is generational. So that's normally the story, but
Yeah,
you get people that come along who mirror you and make you feel seen. And thank you to all of those people on behalf of all of
definitely.
us. So it's interesting, isn't it, how they all they all knew but failed to give you a shout on that one.
Yeah.
And I have to say that what I've noticed in the time interviewing people, I've only been in the space for 7 or 8 months, that there's not much of a bridge between the world that doesn't understand it and just think it's what you said, it's the extreme version, and we see it in children, and then the rest of us, which is the ND community that totally accept and love each other and have so much compassion towards this. There doesn't seem to be many people in the middle. We're either being seen as making it up or lying, or we're in the community. I don't know how we're going to bridge that, trying to let NTers know that all of us, in this community on a different spectrum of it all, and that we deserve to be honoured rather than, everybody's diagnosed these days. Anyway, I'm going to leave that because I saw a video yesterday and it wound me up. So,
Yeah.
but like you said, you never would have thought that was the thing for you. And for me, I never thought that too. I had no idea. Why would I think that? I just thought it was all the other things that people told me. And it's hard, isn't it, when you like everything you had been through in your life and just how did it, from a judgment perspective, how did you feel about yourself? Were you still like, it sounded like you were able to thrive and build this business and everything, which is
um,
incredible. But where do you sit on that sort of judgment lens? How did you cope with who you were and the behaviors you were doing, if you know what I mean?
so before, I've struggled with mental health issues before, my whole life. I got into a lot of addiction problems, and that's the way I dealt with life in general, was drink, drugs, smoking, um, lot of promiscuous behaviour, just sort of, and, again, which I can sort of look at and go, that's very typical for undiagnosed neurodivergent people. But that was my life, and then that sort of spiraled post sort of all of this, even sort of before being diagnosed, but sort of having those inklings there. I actually went through a phase of, and I still experience imposter syndrome. Um, this is all still very new for me, so sometimes I feel like, am I just putting it on now that I've been told there's this? Am I just playing up to it? You sort of feel like you've become more autistic, more ADHD once you get told that's what it is. Um, and I think a big part of that as well comes from people that, friends, family that either have a neurodivergent themselves, or they have children that are, or close people, and they tend to be the ones that have not spoken to me, that haven't reached out, that sort of shunned me in a way, and that again just adds to the feeling of, oh well, maybe they feel like I'm trying to steal their thunder or something like that, and it's not. I'm just trying to understand myself, and that's why I got into talking about different experiences, different traits, different things that people may not realize are actually to do with being neurodivergent. It's partly to help other people feel seen and help them realize that you're not weird. This is normal. It's just you're normal. It's not neurotypical normal, but this is a lived experience that many of us have. But also a way of, I suppose, it's sort of validating for myself. If I put it out there, I am just expressing how I feel and the things that I go through. And then I see other people comment and say, I feel the same. And I think, I'm not putting it on. This really is me, because I'll be honest, I've gone through a big grieving process as well. And I think I'm still going through it, if I'm being totally honest. It's a lot of the what ifs. How could life have been different had this been picked up when I was younger? Now, the chances of it being picked up when I was younger, not very high, because I grew up in the 90s. But it was, the
Yeah.
extremes were diagnosed, and anything sort of in between wasn't. But yeah, it's been tough to sort of to get my head around, and to accept myself for who I am, and realize that this is me. But again, putting it out there and the neurodivergent community um, reciprocating that and helping me as much as I've helped them is, it's the most valuable thing I could ask for.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And how do you feel about yourself now as a person? Because everyone has a different experience of this. Once it's the diagnosis, self-diagnosis, honoring our truth. For me personally, like you said, there's so much grief and processing what could have been, but also, oh, now I kind of have more answers. I can have a way more compassion for myself and I can actually be kinder to myself and believe in myself more, ironically, even though the traits are now confirmed that they could hold me back. I feel like that the power of knowledge and knowing allows me to feel better about myself. Where are you on that kind of concept?
So I'm still, like I said, still it's still new. I still have those moments where I sort of have that grieving process and all that. But you're right. I understand myself more. I make allowances for myself more as well, and it's allowed me to realize the things in life that I really didn't enjoy or things that I did enjoy, and just sort of lean into that or steer away from that. So, for example, always fidgeting and always realize I used to have a vocal stim that was clearing my throat. And I've had this since I was about 14, and I never knew what it was. And I always just thought I went to the doctors about it. Oh, and then it was only beginning of this year. Someone said, "You know that's a vocal stim, don't you?" And I've been dealing with it for 20 years at that point. Hardly ever do it now because I know it's a stim. But then I sort of picked up another stim. So that's why I wear my rings now, so that I can sit there and fidget with them if I want to wear my loop earplugs or headphones in public or in a indoor setting or anything. I allow myself to. I don't try and suppress how I feel anymore, and I say to myself, I'll remind myself, I'm allowed. I That's freeing. That's very freeing. Is I'm allowed to feel comfortable, and I'm allowed to do what's right for me. I think as well, being a father, even though my son, as far as we know, isn't neurodivergent, I do believe he's shown a few traits, but it's something that the school will be monitoring and stuff. But he's really helped me sort of focus on looking after myself, because I'm thinking if he ever feels uncomfortable in situations, I don't want him to feel like he has to put on a show. So because of through being a father, that's actually helped me accept myself and make many allowances for myself. So I feel good. I think there's a very long answer to that, but basically I feel good, and I feel like I feel I'm very privileged. I can make a lot of exceptions, allowances for myself, and I can tailor things to how I want. So obviously, I run my own business, so I can structure that how I want to structure it. And I realise that some people can't do that, but there are other aspects in people's lives where they can, and I think that's really important. Is just knowing where you can make allowances for yourself, accept yourself, and start feeling right. This is me. Let's make something of it.
I love that, and it's really important to acknowledge, resources that we have and the environment we're in and our circumstances, but knowing that there can be lots of different ways, big or small, where we can start to honor our truth, really. And I think it's something that we've not been able to experience really up to a point of our diagnosis, self-diagnosis, that we haven't had a chance to really do that because we didn't have I guess, the information, I suppose, to to know what does this even mean for me. And I think just as soon as you get a chance to explore those things, wherever it's whatever the stims are, just discover what your stims are and go, actually that stim's fine. I can roll with that. Sometimes I may feel it's not appropriate in a certain area, but how can you do it in a more subtle way? It's like with fiddle toys, rather than having some big childish fiddle toy. I've got one here which is made out of different kinds of material, which is much more an art piece than anything. It looks incredible. And then I can just spin that when I'm out and about, and because it's just well made and a bit more professional, it works. So I guess it's just finding our path in this life. So how does it show up for you in your life? So you're talking about people being late and that just, not having that structure and that predictability might be dysregulating. Are there any other key ways that your neurodivergent shows up in your day-to-day life that you find kind of holds you back still at this point?
A lot of hypocrisy, actually. Having the dual diagnosis, there's a lot of conflicting and contradicting traits. So I can't stand people being late. I also can't stand people being early. I'm late to everything. I am always late. I'm surprised I managed to get onto this podcast. I because I suffer with really bad time blindness, but things are also grouped into either 5, 10, or 15 minute brackets for me. So if I know that something is going to take, if something's a 7 minute journey, in my head that it's closer to 5 minutes, so it's a 5 minute journey. So I know it's 5 minutes from my house, and it's probably nearer 7. But then I'll start getting ready at the when I've got a minute to leave, and it's very difficult. So and I think the other thing as well, it's obviously I mentioned accepting yourself and making allowances for yourself, and I'm open and honest with people. I tell people I'm neurodivergent and these are my traits, and if I notice myself doing something or saying something or coming across a certain way, I do say, but I apologise. I didn't mean to come across as if I come across very blunt or very sort of monotone. Also have quite a strong PDA profile, so that can cause quite a lot of problems. So I do try and make people aware, but it's also realising that as much as I need people to be aware, and I'll try and make people aware, and they need to make allowances for me, I can't expect everyone to make all the allowances for me. And it's trying to find that balance I find really, really difficult. I'll give you an example. My apprentice, I'll say something, and so I've got a colleague that works here as well, and I'll say to them both, right, with my colleague Camille, right, you need to do this, this, and this. I'm not happy with this, this, and this. He'll go, yeah, okay, no problem. My apprentice Charlotte, I'll say, right, and you need to do this, this, and this, and I'm not happy with this. And because I'm just saying it very matter of fact, very bluntly, like this is work. Do as I say. I'm the boss. Do it. She takes it very personally, to the point where there could be, shouting and screaming and floods of tears. Now, she needs to remember that I'm not being rude. I'm just being very matter of fact, very blunt, very to the point. This is the situation. This is what you need to do about it. But I also need to take that accountability and realise that just because I know I come across like that doesn't mean that she has to 100% accept it. And that's the bit that's a bit in life I'm struggling with at the moment, I think, is finding that balance between people knowing how I can be or what I can be like, and making that allowance for me, but me not expecting them to roll over and just accept exactly how I'm being all the time. I don't know if that makes much sense, but that's the bit I'm really struggling with, I think. And that comes in all forms, whether it be the way I talk or being late, but not wanting people to be late and all that sort of stuff.
Look, honestly, it's such an important message, and it's such a big part of all of this, especially if it's AuDHD and you have these conflicting presentations. But you're right, when we say, living your truth as a neurodivergent person doesn't mean you just do what the hell you want when you want. You'll do all the presentations you feel are appropriate for you, and just causing carnage in your wake and upsetting people in your life and loved ones. There is this. It's not black and white, we will be covering that on a future episode, the black and white thinking. But you're right, it's complicated because you need to be able to express yourself in the most truthful way you can. But actually, if it's harmful in any way or upsetting to anybody, and that's reasonable that they'd be upset, oh, that's tricky, because then you're having to mask, you're having to change the way you behave. And we know that masking is burning out so many of our community. It's like, where do you sit on, sometimes you have to mask a bit and adjust to other people, but also we've spent our whole life not living our truth, and it's been devastating. So I think we need a bit of slack, don't we? Because it's been devastating up to this point. We're trying to figure it out, but we finally got truth, and we're now having to go, well, only if the truth's appropriate. So it's like,
Yeah. Yeah.
can't, that's a big emotional shift, isn't it? And I think give yourself some grace, man, because and so much compassion, because it's going to take a little bit of time to adjust to this is Dan and I'm starting to love myself, but I also really care about everybody around me and I want to do best by them. It's a tricky one, isn't it?
It is. It is. And um, my son, weirdly, is the one that has helped me the most with it. Uh, I make a point of explaining everything to him in an age appropriate way. And for example, I get really touched out sometimes, and I've explained that to him. And sometimes Daddy doesn't want to cuddle because and I use the words touched out. And sometimes now he'll come over to me, and before he just comes and gives me obviously if he's feeling a bit down or a bit tired, he'll just come and cuddle me, and I'll cuddle him. But if he just fancies a cuddle and for a bit, he'll say, "Daddy, you touched out?" And if I say yes, he'll go, "Okay, I'll ask for a cuddle later." And he will just sit next to me instead. And then sometimes I'll go and ask him for a cuddle, because big on consent, so I never just go and wrap my arms around him anyway. But Zach, can I have a cuddle, please? And he'll go, "No, thank you, Papa. I'm feeling a bit touched out right now." And so we're using that sort of language, and I'm talking to him, and because of that, I've realised that if a 4-year-old can understand those sorts of concepts and allow it, and just sit, see it as okay, this is normal, and we're asking if we can cuddle, and he doesn't want to cuddle right now, and that's okay to say no. And he's teaching me a lot about what's okay for me to, what boundaries are okay for me to put in place, and also how to speak to people in a sort of maybe a sort of kinder way, because I try very hard not to be very sort of blunt and black and white with him. So I'll use the lessons I've learned from talking to him with other people as well.
Yeah, they're like little wise beings, aren't they? In a way, they're so
Yeah.
young, but they're just authentic. I think kids are really authentic until it's kind of school and peers sort of take it out of them, isn't it? It's interesting. It's kind of like worn away over time. It's really sad. I'm seeing it in my 9-year old stepson's environment and class and school. You can see it. It's heartbreaking. Just them wanting to fit in, and you can just see them shedding off some of their authenticity, which all of us in the ND community to a certain extent have had to do up to this point, and trying to get that back is a thing. But yeah, let's stick in around the fatherhood bit. We're going to just skip this one particular question. We'll come back to it as we're on it, because we're both dads. And it's an interesting one because I know that my stepson is going for assessment, and we're pretty sure that he is. It goes through my whole partner's lineage, ADHD and autism. So supporting him on the journey personally has really helped me support me. I'm like, oh, I can see what he's doing. It's so great that he's just doing that. I should just do that. Oh my God, that feels great. And I think whether we have neurodivergent children or not, they can still teach us something. And how do you feel? Because I've had a few people talk about this recently. Do you feel your neurodivergence makes you feel like you're not the kind of parent you want to be, or do you lead first with "I know the parent I am, regardless of ND," or do you find the ND maybe affects your what you want parenting to look like? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And I've been having this conversation a lot recently. I think the ND has helped me be a much better parent, and it's because of it's because of I don't understand certain concepts, certain traditions, certain ways that that I was brought up, and so I just won't implement it with my son. So as I said, sort of touched on earlier, consent is a big thing for me, and I teach my son that he has autonomy, he has the right to consent. So growing up, I don't know if you experienced it as well. You probably did when you go see family friends. It's go give your auntie a kiss, go give your cousin a kiss, go give them come here, let me give you a cuddle. And a lot of the time you're like, don't touch me, I don't want to be touched. So I'm big on that. So very so I can I have a cuddle, please? No. Okay, I won't push it. And my own mum has said that she's like, what, why can't I just give him a cuddle? I'm his nana. I don't care who you are. My son has said no. He has said no. And this was when he was 2. We had a bit of an argument about it. And she said, "Oh, but that's what people do." I said, "Why? It doesn't make sense. You wouldn't force anyone else to give people a kiss or a cuddle." And it's weird to me. And again, sort of looking into it, I realised that was quite a neurodivergent trait. Like, this social norm doesn't make sense to me, so I'm just going to scrap it. And I do a lot of the sort of gentle parenting, because again, in my head, if I have to shout and scream and, threaten or, slap my kid as an adult, if I can't talk to a child who's only a few years old without the threat of violence, and that's a me problem. That's not a him problem. That's a me problem. Um, and a lot of people again have said, "Oh, sometimes kids just, they just need to be taught." No, because that's just bullying. Like, if I went around and hit anyone else or shouted at anyone else, then that's harassment. That's bullying. That's illegal. So it should be no different. Children should be more protected. So I'm breaking a lot of cycles, and doing things so differently to how I was raised and how a lot of sort of our generation were raised. And I do genuinely believe that's a lot to do with the neurodivergence, because just because it's a social norm and just because it's the way all things have always been done, just because it's tradition, if it doesn't make sense to me, it doesn't exist.
Yeah, thanks so much. And I mean, this topic's a whole episode, isn't it? But you're right, because I think when you are neurodivergent, you can see people's behavior differently. I mean, I feel like attunement to other people's behavior is something that's part of the ND thing anyway. Sometimes it works against us and we're hyper vigilant and it completely burns us out, always looking for how people are behaving and our RSD, why did they say that like that? But what these children are helping us see is that if I a quick little example. I'm losing the plot here. Quick little example. I love the story. So I went to the cinema with my stepson the other day. There was two other people on the screen. It was incredible. 9:30 in the morning, no one else there. I hate going to busy screens. I can't do it. It's too overstimulating. What are they doing? Why are they making a noise? Why are they on their phone? I can't watch the film. I hate it. I need space and quiet. So we go super early. But what was quite interesting is I could tell he was loving the film. Maybe normal parents say he doesn't seem to be enjoying it because he's moving around, he's lifting up the armrest, he's lying flat, and then he'll sit back up, and then he'll play with the little field toy, and then he'll move around again. And you know what parents would do, wouldn't they? Sit still, stop messing around, you can disturb people, all of this kind of stuff, which is insane, because you're basically telling somebody with this excess energy and charge just to hold it all in and hold it down. And you're not enjoying it, we're going to leave. If you don't want to watch this film, we're going to leave. This is what will happen, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But I thought, nah, screw it. There's only two other people on the screen and they're loving the film. I just let him do it. And it was just so beautiful. I got quite emotional about it because at the end I said, "So what do you think about the film?" Because I loved it. Whereas everyone else would say you didn't because you're doing all that. But no, he needed to move. The sound was really loud, big visuals, and he just needed to move around. He came in for cuddles and he'd walk away again. And he wasn't like walking around or running around or anything. He stayed in his seat. He wouldn't have disturbed anybody. And it was so powerful for me to say, actually, yeah, if I'm in the cinema, I want to take my shoes off. I want to get my spinner out. I want to like fidget a little bit. Who cares? And I think the more we can allow kids to do things like that kind of stimming, they can get the full spectrum of that experience of watching that film and love it in the way they need to love it. Does that make sense? I just think it's a prime example. I just let him do his thing, and it meant he enjoyed it even more.
That makes perfect sense. And again, side note, it was really nice seeing you explain that story as well. Just sort of, you're almost reliving it, and I sort of got a really good feeling of sort of how you felt in the moment. And yeah, it was just lovely. It was just lovely hearing that story and seeing you talk about that. It was really, really nice. But yeah, I definitely I get that, and that's another thing. Sort of everyone, especially adults, expect children, other adults, to enjoy the things in the way that they enjoy them. And I actually, maybe a bit controversial. I do think that's actually sort of quite a neurodivergent thing. And I do think a lot of the parents that are, oh no, you should be doing it because, social norms. It's because they've had to mask for so long without necessarily knowing that they may be neurodivergent. Because I think there are a lot of undiagnosed adults out there, a lot of undiagnosed parents and grandparents that, because again, it wasn't a thing back then. It just wasn't really known about. But they were always, they were the ones that were fidgeting around. They were the ones that couldn't sit still. They were the ones that wanted to do this as children, and then their parents were, no, you've got to sit still. So it's like, well, I don't really want to, but okay, well, that's what you do. And then as they grew up, it's like, well, I remember feeling like that, but I was always told that I had to sit still and that I couldn't fidget. And so it's just, again, generationally. And I think now that we do have more awareness of neurodivergence, and it's not even necessarily neurodivergence, just children being children, and allowing children to actually just be children in the way that they want to be, I think that's helping to break a lot of cycles as well. But I do think, yeah, a lot of parents, oh well, you should sit still. In the back of their mind, going, that was me when I was younger, but I wasn't allowed to, so you're not allowed to either. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I could be wrong on that, but I do think.
Yeah, parenting is bloody hard work, to be honest, especially by yourself, as you are. And look, at the end of the day, like we're just all doing our best. Parents are just doing their best, and some of it's informed by how we were brought up, and some of it's by society. It's cool. It's just in any given moment, if you have a chance to let them be authentic, you be authentic, and it will be surrounded by love. And
Exactly.
they should get through to adulthood, hopefully, with a set of tools that will help them through. So there isn't us guys that had to wait this long to get truth and build a life for ourselves. There should be no regret, hopefully, for the next generation that know, which is beautiful. Love that. So, if you don't mind, let's touch it because I think we both come from this perspective. Let's talk about creativity for a second. So, obviously, the work that you're doing is very creative. And however people feel about creativity with ADHD, AuDHD, ASD, wherever it sits, most people I've met are very creative. Whether they use it or think they're any good at it is something else.
Yeah.
But how much of a part of your life has that been? And how does it help you? How does it serve you, do you think, in who you are as a person and your emotions?
So with creativity, obviously, big part of my job, and the tattooing and stuff. But I struggle, and I never used to know why. So with drawing, for example, pieces for with creating pieces for my clients, it's actually quite difficult. A lot of people go, oh, you're creative, but I've got so much going on in my head, and I recently learned that so there are people that can't picture anything visually. You ask them to picture something, and there's nothing that appears. They don't see images in their head. And then most people will see sort of like a basic version of that image. I see things hyper detailed, hyper realistic. So if I said picture a fruit bowl, which was the example that was given to me, it's most people just picture a normal fruit bowl and sort of a fairly basic thing. I will picture every little bit of detail. I'll picture the reflectiveness. I'll picture pattern work. I'll picture the fruit that's in it. I'll picture every slight bruise on that fruit. I'll picture the table. And then trying to replicate that on paper or in a digital format is actually really difficult because there's so much going on in my head. It's hard to pick out bits to sort of then to then put that onto paper. So it's actually quite a bit of a hindrance in a way. But then the other side of it with working best under pressure, a lot of ADHD people will be able to relate to work under pressure. Is if I had you booked in next week, for example, and you said, I want this, and this, I can't get the design work on them because so much is going on in my head. I can't focus. The night before you're in, or even sometimes the morning that you're in, it's like, I've got to get it done, and I'll pull out the best work I've done. So it's the urgency. It's more the sense of urgency that helps with, so I suppose, channel that creativity and funnel it. If I don't have a sense of urgency, I suppose I guess in a way I'm too creative, and it's too manic, it's too chaotic. As soon as there's a sense of urgency, that's when you see my creativity shine. and that's when you will see the best work come out, and that's when you'll see whether it be putting content online, whether it be uh, tattoos, artwork in general, even coming up with things to do with my son. If I've got all day to think about it, oh, he really wants to do something, I won't be able to think of anything because there'll be a million things going through my head. Right, oh, I've got to pick him up in 5 minutes and I haven't thought of anything. That's when we're going to have the best sport you've ever seen, and it's going to be hanging from the banister, and it's going to have lights and decoration, and I'll be able to put it all together because I've got to. So, I don't know if you have this, if you experience the same sort of thing with creativity.
Yeah, I was smiling because I'm doing my graphic design degree at the moment. I just finished my first year, but I'm like you, and my best designs will come in the weekend before submission for each task that I'm doing. And I'm very much like you. You know, when I get set the next assignment, and it was set, and I'll skip to all the different sections of that assignment over that 4 weeks. And I look at what the final piece is. My brain's like, let's make the final piece. And it became a real problem. In the first 6 months of my degree, I didn't know I was ADHD. So I was getting really upset with myself. It's like leaving it to the last minute, all the classic stuff. But then actually when I realized it, and I spoke to the university after my diagnosis, they were amazing. They were like, just do it in the way you need to do it. If you can't pre-sketch, just tell us how you got there using verbal scripts. So speaking to a phone, it writes it out for me. And then they just need to know how I got there. But my instant instinct is create the design now. But I can't do that because I had to do all the pre-research and everything behind it. So what I did do, and I don't know if this would link with you, we talked about in the coaching course we did on the weekend, make allowances for the way your brain works. So don't try and change your brain or judge your brain, is make allowances for it. So if you know that your best work is in the few days before, the day before, plan a life where when those moments are going to happen, you've got clients coming up or I've got a course to finish, right off the weekend. Don't plan activities. Maybe it's when you don't have your son for that weekend or whatever, and allow for you to do your best work. Your best work is in the last minute. So create a little bubble of last minute action that you can put it in, honor it and say, yeah, I'm going to do it the day before. That's cool. That's my vibe. And it's been a game changer for me to do it in the way that best serves me without doing it by the structure that's told to me. How does that feel, mate?
Yeah, that's brilliant. Actually, I like that. It's when you say it, you think, oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But it's something I'd have actively thought of. So that's something I'm going to try and implement. Actually, thank you.
That's all right. It's like making allowances. You know, if you've got a school run coming up and you know that the schoolyard's going to overstimulate you, then just make sure that you create a lifestyle, if you can, where you have 20 minutes before that, where you're in quiet, low lighting. I think the journey of an undeer is just to discover your truth in how the tools that you want to use and trying to commit to it. It's hard though, isn't it? It's hard to commit to those things that we need to do anyway. But I have to say that until we allow for our stuff to happen, and we can't keep suppressing. They say, if you don't use it, you lose it. I would say if you don't use it, you suppress it. So
Yeah,
if you don't use the energy, you're going to push it back into your system. And that's what leads to all the other comorbidities and the stress and the chronic fatigue and the burnout and everything else. We need to let the stuff out in a constructive, beautiful, compassionate way. And do you do that, my friend? Do you have compassionate and lovely ways where you can release anything that your ND brain and body's wanting to do? Do you feel comfortable in just letting it go?
So yeah, my two big things are the gym and cooking. The gym, it gives me it obviously uses physical energy and it gives me focus. I know sort of what weights I'm doing. I've got structure. Today I'm doing these exercises at these weights, and I've been able to put together a full routine that I can do each week that I can adjust and make it mine, and that's given me a really good sense of control and structure and routine. And then the flip side of that is going home and cooking, and I don't follow a single recipe. I could cook for you, and then you can say, "Oh, can you cook that meal again for me?" And no, because I don't even know what went in it. It was just whatever I felt at the time, and I just sort of go with the flow. And that's when, I just sort of those two things: the gym, the sort of structure, the routine, and getting that physical energy out, and then the cooking, is just sort of letting my mind go completely free, and yeah, just having fun with it, and getting my son involved as well. He loves cooking, and yeah, just it does mean, like I said, you'll never get the same meal twice from me. But yeah, it's those are my two things, and as well, I like going out, putting headphones on, and just getting outside for a walk, as long as it's not too bright or too hot, because I don't do well with really bright weather and really hot weather. But I live in a beautiful area, woodland all around me, loads of wild animals and stuff. So yeah, just getting outside as well, going for a walk, try and listen to a podcast and have to rewind the same bit 10 times over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm really into just sort of looking after myself physically, and by doing that, sort of mentally as well. I used to be a lot bigger. I was very unhealthy. I was 107 kilos, and then I got down to 81, but I'm back up to about 86 now. As I said, I used to drink a lot and do drugs and smoke and all of that sort of stuff. And as cliche as it sounds, like you really, you look after your physical health, and your mental health doesn't improve. I try not to tell people that too much, because it does sound a bit like, oh, if you eat right and go to the gym, you'll start feeling better. And life isn't as simple as that. But those are things I've found, so I can sort of have structure, have freedom at the same time. Just nothing else matters at that point. So,
Yeah. I think, yeah, I love that. I think a good way to think about it is that stress on the body will cause stress in the mind. So, if your body's struggling anyway, your gut is struggling to process food, or your muscles are just so tight and worn out, that's sending feedback for your nervous system to your brain. So, and then your brain is then wired, and you're trying to unpack that, and you've got more stressful thoughts, and you know what I mean? So
yeah,
it is holistic, it's everything, obviously. But they do say, especially for ADHD, that it's so important to move. The best thing you can do is move
yeah,
if it feels appropriate. And speaking of that, because I've been trying to hold it in my mind the whole time, that with the ADHD side of things, because it's interesting you said that about the structure of the gym and the freestyling of the cooking. How does that kind of play out sitting on the autistic's ADHD spectrum? So, for example, for impulsivity, where do you sit on that? Are you impulsive? Are you impulsive at times and not at others because of the ADHD? That's another trait. Is that something for you or not?
yeah. So, um, I there's been a few memes going around. It really does sum it up. Uh, I love impulsivity, but only on my terms. I love structure, but I'm not going to follow structure half the time. I crave routine, but I'm probably not going to stick to your routine, and I'll only stick to my routine if I feel like it. So yeah, it's very, very, very 50-50, very split down the middle for me. And again, that's something I struggle with, but I also make allowances for. There are obviously certain things that I have to do. So, looking after my son, taking him to preschool, and he starts reception in September. So, doing the school, those are things I have to do to a structured time. Everything else, can't do anything about that. Everything else in my life, I try to make allowances and a bit of freedom for. So I try to do the preschool run, and then I'll go straight to the gym from preschool. And then I'll maybe do a tattoo, and then I'll get back, pick him up. And that's my structure, that's my routine. I've got that in place. I've also made allowances that if I'm not feeling the gym that day, I don't have to go to the gym. If I'm not feeling the gym, then I'll go for a walk instead, or I'll do some housework. And so I've built in some fail safes, I guess, into the areas I can have that freedom to sort of change the plan. And I think that's the thing as well. I think people think of impulsivity as doing something extreme a lot of the time. Let's book a trip to Vegas, that sort of stuff.
Mhm.
Sometimes it is just deviating from whatever the plan was. It doesn't have to be some big grand gesture. It could be that you're going to go to the gym and instead you're going for a walk. At the last, I could be on my way to the gym and then drive off and divert and then go, and it's like no, because that feels too structured and too routine. I just need to. So yeah, it's allowing for to deviate where I can. But it's tricky. It's tricky to get your head around sometimes.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because we're still even 2025 looking at, is it okay, you've got ADHD, got ASD, autism, and you've got AuDHD, but I still think we're being too structured and black and white about it. And I've been talking a lot about recently to people who are like, oh, I'm not sure, maybe I am. I more of a, if you just think of a straight line, this end is ADHD, this end is ASD, and we just sit somewhere on it. And it could be purely in the center, could be more one way or the other, rather than seeing it as in it's one, two, or three. Because some of the stuff you're saying, I'm like that, but I wouldn't say I'm ADHD because I haven't gone the autistic journey yet. Maybe I am.
Yeah,
But I'm just like, I think maybe we should just let it all go and just say, have a
yeah,
different name where we sit somewhere on that line. What are your thoughts there?
yeah. Well, uh, I actually sort of take it a step or two further, and obviously everyone knows it's a spectrum, and everyone's been told it's a spectrum, but it's really what is a spectrum? What you hear that it's a spectrum, everyone's on a spectrum, but no one's ever really told what that means. And to me, it's actually every individual trait is on its own spectrum, and then each one of those combines to create you. So if you look at RSD, for example, you've got RSD and like PDA profile here, just as those two, then everyone would be somewhere on this spectrum for this one here, and everyone would be on this spectrum here, and then so I think saying even if you say like it's a line or spectrum or whatever, it's so easy to sort of group people in to one specific thing or nearer one specific thing or the other. And really, no, just like in people in general, no two people are the same. No two people's neurodivergent experiences or traits will be the same. And I think, for me, it helps personally looking at every individual trait, somewhere on that spectrum, and then there's a different trait, and then somewhere on that spectrum, and then you put all those together, and that creates me. That's what I'm made up of. And that's my neurodivergent life experience. Um, but I think as well, it's important to realize that traits and symptoms can change over time. And so for me, for example, I used to have to wear baggy clothes all the time. I could not stand the feeling of stuff. Whereas now, you can see I'm sort of wearing sort of a tighter fitting top. And and then I had to wear really tight fitting clothes, just out of the blue. All my clothes had to be really tight fitting. Now my tops have to be tight fitting, but my trousers have to be looser. And that's again all just to do with sensory stuff and touch, things like that. So I never used to be able to sleep with any sound in the bedroom. It had to be dead silent, and now I can't sleep without the fan or the aircon. So things change over time as well. So I think as well, it's very important for people to not necessarily look at this is me and this is how I experience this trait, and so that now is me, and that's it, because it changes, and people change, and your experiences change, and your brain changes, and I think it's really important that people realize that this whole thing of it being a spectrum, and even what I said about every individual trait being a spectrum, that can all change, and that's the frustrating thing. But I also think, in a way, sort of the beautiful thing about it is because, for me personally, it means I'm always learning, I'm always evolving, and I'm always getting to see things from someone else's perspective. Because if I've felt like this a certain way all my life, and then that trait changes, or something changes, or the way I experience it changes, suddenly I can see, do you know what? You said this to me, and now I can see where you're coming from. It opens my eyes to another perspective. So it can be frustrating, but I think it could be beautiful as well.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks so much. I want everything you said there because that is very aligned with the ADHD coaching I'm doing now, which is, when I've been practicing with clients now, is that we're not like, okay, you're ADHD, let's just sort that out. We're saying what traits, so just ignore ADHD for a second, what traits are impacting your life? and affecting you to have the life that you want and all kinds of stuff. We're pulling it out, like you said, is exactly what we're doing. We're removing the ADHD for a second, just looking at those different things. They will have no labels and names and things like that. You're spot on. And then working through those things. And it doesn't mean we're doomed to those things. I have RSD, so I'm doomed for life. I'm always going to be highly sensitive. Okay, to a point, but we can definitely help you have tools and love and compassion for yourself, mindfulness to help you in those moments. And neuroplasticity is a thing. We can rewire our brain, you rewire neural pathways, but there's no evidence yet that we can rewire a neurodivergent brain to whatever the hell an NT brain is, neurotypical brain. There's no evidence that you do that. But what you can do is make those neural firing patterns be more adaptive. So you have more tolerance, more capacity over time. So we can do some rewiring, which is really exciting. So just bearing all of that in mind, and whatever traits are impacting your life, then how can we best help those through it by being, befriending them really and helping them through. So yeah, thank you. It's really powerful what you said. If we just remove all those names and just say, I'm Owen, this is how life presents, this is what I really thrive in, and this is what kind of holds me back a little bit. And does it matter? Does it matter what I thrive in? It doesn't matter what holds me back. It only matters if it matters, basically. And there's some parts of my ADHD, I don't really care. I won't change them. If anything, I'm kind of using it to my benefit. There's other ones actually quite devastating that I'd love to work on. It's interesting, isn't it? It's like not all of our traits are something that's destroying our life. Some of them are just welcome visitors, aren't they?
Yeah. And I think that's the thing as well, that a lot of people recently diagnosed neurodivergent people, and a lot of neurotypical people think is that if you mention neurodivergence, autism, ADHD, anything else, it's always, oh, that means that you struggle with this and that you struggle with that and that this is a problem and that's a problem. So, okay, well, that might be the case, but also I feel like I am much better at picking up on subtle facial cues and sort of body language from people, and I can tell if something's up. I can hear all of my senses are very, very heightened, and I can hear things a lot of people can't hear. I can smell things a lot of people can't. Also, when it comes to cooking, for example, and taste and smell and your two main senses of cooking, I can pick up on subtlest of flavors and stuff like that, and that's why I love cooking so much, because I'm really good at it, because I'll be able to meld things together that people might not even think of. With hearing, I can hear things, which again can be really frustrating. My hearing's overly sensitive, but then sometimes it can come in quite handy. I can notice the slightest little movement in the corner of the room, and there are positives to it as well. And I think you touched on it earlier, just sort of being able to pick up on how others may be feeling is a massive advantage. It's such a big advantage that we have, and I think people need to be aware that it's like with anything. You've got the good and the bad with everything in life, and we do have a lot of us struggle with certain traits, but there are also a lot of traits that I wouldn't give up for the world. I'm glad that I've got them, and I'm glad that I'm aware of them now, and that I realize that it's a part of me that a lot of people don't have, and like you said, use it to your advantage.
Certainly, and it's I'm trying to wrap up the show between us, but I want to talk to you all day, man. This is brutal, having to wrap it up. But yeah, just put all of that in a bow in a box and send it off. It's kind of like we think of all of these labels, especially ADHD, and just think about it as a regulation thing. So remove all the names. It's a regulation of thoughts, a regulation of focus, a regulation of emotions, a regulation of behavior, of responses. What pretty much all of it comes down to is we don't have a natural regulation preset, and we're having to do a lot more work than, say, a neurotypical would have to do to keep that regulation in check, right? If you really break it down, strip it down, it's I don't know what the word is, not disorder, because it's not disorder, but it's a regulation thing. Put a name in. And that is pretty much the mission on a daily basis, is how can we regulate all these things? So hyperfocus can be good. And actually, it can be really bad because you're not attending to anything else and everything else goes out the window. So that's where it's bad. But the hyperfocus means I'm probably going to get a good degree, a good grade at the end of it all.
Yeah.
Brilliant. But am I going to kill myself in the process of doing that degree, burnout wise? Yes, probably, because the techniques I'm using are not going to be sustainable because of my hyperfocus. So, ironically, gets me the degree, but will burn me out to the very end, and that's not helpful. So, all we need to do is come back to base and just say, how can I thrive in the most regulated way with my beautiful brain? I guess.
Yeah, yeah, and that sort of brings us back to you're always learning. Yeah, you always learn. I'm always learning about myself. You're always learning about yourself. There's always new things. But that's what I love as well. It's I love learning, and I love like you said with the degree and stuff. It's sort of autism and ADHD has become a big hyper focus for me, and that's why I've managed to find out so much about it so quickly. And I'm very in tune with myself, my own body, and I managed to sort of look within as well. And I've learned a lot about myself, a lot about neurodiversity in the neurodivergent community. And sorry,
Yeah.
I'm well aware that you said, but you want to wrap this up and stuff.
No, no,
But
no, it's fine. We both have time. Anybody that's listening, I'm just trying our best to keep an eye on our energy so we can regulate ourselves
yes,
before school runs or whatever else we're doing. Um, but yeah, it's interesting, in another episode, we can talk way more about all of this stuff. But the labels and the names are an interesting one. They're so useful, but also they put us in a box, which isn't useful because NTers will then not understand our box and they won't understand how to unpack it. So I don't know about you, just to the last point, that when I've tried to explain to people about it who have then like gone, well, no, you're not. Look what you've done. And it's like, okay, let's say it another way. I struggle with RSD and I'll explain the rejection. I'm like, oh my God, yeah, I get that. So what they really want to hear is you to tell them an experience that they have so they can feel seen and heard and connect to you, whether you're NT or ND. As soon as you word it as an experiential experience, that's when they're on board and they go, ah. As soon as you start giving labels and names and boxes, they freak out. I don't understand it. But does that make sense? But if you tell them what RSD or PDA feels like, or anxiety or depression, they're like, or addiction, they're like, yeah, I get that. I'm sorry you experienced that. And then suddenly they're compassionate. Whereas before they were like, ADHD, shut up, mate. You know what I mean?
yeah. So I've had a different experience to you with that. So when I said I put up on my studio Facebook and Instagram that um, about the autism and ADHD and said, just I'm learning about myself. So if I seem a bit different or something, it's just something I've got a lot to unravel. And I had a lot of people comment saying that it was more about their children, and they said, "I've showed my child your profile and everything that you've managed to do, and set up business and being a great dad and all this sort of stuff without even being diagnosed." And they've been diagnosed, from a young age or whatever. So I'm trying to say, like, look at what you can achieve, and you've got more tools than Dan had. So sky's the limit, sort of thing. Is they've used it as a positive, and then saying to people in person, I've actually had a lot of saying about like specific traits or things that you may struggle with. I get a lot of yeah, but I struggle with that. Yeah, but I struggle with that. Doesn't mean
Mm,
that I'm autistic. I'm not saying that
yeah.
you are, but I'm just saying, So I've actually had a very different experience. You say that people sort of been able to have that compassion. I've had that thing of yeah, well, and what? So it's odd that two people could sort of tell people very similar things and get two very very different reactions. But I think for me as well is I don't know about you. I don't sort of like almost have like a radar for neurodivergent people, and you sort of you notice a lot of traits in other people. You think, oh, do you know what? You're definitely somewhere around it. We've got more in common than you think, but they may not realize it. And I think speaking to a lot of these people, because they do say that neurodivergent people, even undiagnosed, if they have no idea, naturally sort of, flock together. They're more likely to be drawn together in some way, shape, or form. It would be friendships, relationships, even down to clientele that I get booked in and stuff like that. And yeah, I think people. I think there's a lot more neurodivergent people out there that just don't either don't realize it or don't want that label, and so they just sort of ignore it. And I think it's not until people like me and people like you start sort of speaking openly about it, and they start going, "Well, I experienced that," but doesn't mean but I experienced that as well. Actually, that's me, and I think there's a sort of big denial phase there.
Oh man, it's so complex, isn't it? I have it.
It
I
is.
obviously I experienced what you said as well. I experienced, so I have that as well. I just noticed that the ones that were really like, oh God, the label. As soon as I took the label away, they understood it more. But they were the people you said about, which is like, yeah, I'd be stressed too if I wanted to go for a promotion. It's like, no, you don't get what I'm saying. So it's. Do you know what, what I've learned at the end of the day, meeting amazing people like you and all the other guests, that just go and find your tribe. Go and find the ND people you love to follow, the authors that you like, social media influencers you like that have it, and just find your tribe because they're going to see you. You can talk to fiddle toys with them like we did at the beginning of the episode here today, sharing our stuff. No shame. There's no shame anymore when I talk to those
No,
kind of people. Just go and find your people. There'll be NTers. I don't like the way we're putting ourselves in groups anyway. It's not really appropriate, but there's loads that are supporting me with it, that want to know more about it and want to care about it. And there's some people that don't, and that's okay too. But
yeah,
actually, the most important thing at our soul level is just to find just a few people that are like, yeah, I'm here for you, man. Just be as crazy as you think you are in your own brain. Just do it. I don't mind. I love it. You're
exactly. And
hilarious. And I don't know. It's important is to just go out and find the people that do see you. Don't waste your energy on convincing anybody. You should not have to convince anybody of your truth. That's just not right, really.
no, that's right. And I think, you're going to go back to the neurodivergent community. If you found my TikTok and you dropped me a message, we've been talking back and forth, and just from the span of a few messages, I think we've gotten really well. As you said, we've got a lot in common. I'm surprised we haven't mentioned WWE once at all today. That's
Yeah.
pretty good going. But also, we've both already said to each other, away from sort of talking about doing the podcast, if either of us need anything, if either of us feel the need to talk to someone, sort of get shit off your chest and you're just struggling with anything, then we've both already said we'll be there for each other and would help each other out in a friendship role as well. And that's I've had a few people that have been like that have reached out to me, I've reached out to, and it's amazing that everyone, a lot of the neurodivergent community, we just want to support each other, we just want to help each other. And one thing I really love that you sort of make very clear, that it doesn't matter whether it's you've been formally diagnosed or you're self-diagnosed or you're unsure. And I love that message as well, because I sort of was made to feel at first that unless you've got an official clinical diagnosis with that bit of paper, that you're not neurodivergent, and that you don't have that right to claim. And I love that the sort of everything that you put out there makes it very clear that it doesn't matter whether it's a formal diagnosis or self-diagnosis, which is suspicion. We just want to know a bit more. So I think that's a very important thing, and I'm really grateful for you putting that out there.
Yeah, thanks, man. I think there's so much misdiagnosis as well. But at the end of the day, when I guess a lot. So when you know, and all that really matters is that you get to work on love and compassion for yourself and honoring what you want and need and living by your values. It's just human experience. We all want to feel seen, heard, understood, and held. That's what humans want.
Yeah,
And no matter what your background is, no matter what race or where in the world you are, we all pretty much want those things. So we all deserve those things,
we do.
and we're no different to anybody else. So it's really beautiful. Amazing stuff. I could talk to you all day, of course. So people have had a little longer episode today, so I hope they've enjoyed. I have no regrets. It's been fantastic. But not to put you on the spot, but every guest is put on the spot. This is your chance to give us your finale message. So a message to all our audience, all our NDR listeners. What would be your message of joy and positivity and affirmation for us in the community, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I think mainly that it is, like you said, it's a community. There's a lot of us that just want to help, support. I think as well, for me personally, I really want to help neurodivergent men and fathers that maybe really, sort of really struggling with that sort of identity of, I'm a man, I'm a dad, but there's all these things going on. Like, you're not the only one. And yeah, people, neurodivergent people in general, like it's a minefield out there with everything going on, and with with everything going on in your own head and stigma attached and all that sort of stuff. And I just want people to know that there are a lot more people like me and you out there that want to listen to people, want to talk to people, want to help people, help them understand themselves, and just realize that they're not alone. And yeah, as I said, mental health is a massively important thing for me. So mental health and neurodivergence, melding together to make sure everyone can thrive. Probably,
Definitely. I can totally concur on that. And yeah, thank you so much. And I've got an idea for everybody listening. I would like to maybe get a group of guys together that have been on the show, we're comfortable, and do a group episode together where we just really dive into more different aspects of being a man in this world in 2025. But most importantly, what does that look like if you're autistic or ADHD? What are the expectations on us? How should we behave? And how do we mask? How do men mask? I'd be really intrigued to see how we all do that. Do we put on the bro vibes to mask? Who knows? Because I'm a very sensitive soul in the best possible way. I'm very loving. And I feel like I'm not supposed to do that or something, classic. But with ND, it's even worse because I'm much more hyper aware that I'm very loving, if that makes sense. So double masking on top. So I know it's 2025. Maybe it's all fixed now.
Yeah, exactly.
It's right. We're all emotionally available.
That's it.
I doubt it, but I'd love to do that. Amazing. Where can we find you online, man? Where do you mostly hang out that people can check out your content?
So my Instagram and my TikTok are both AuDHDan _. So that's AuDHDAN _. I try and put out similar content across the two, but there'll be slight variances depending on what platform you use. But yeah, that's sort of mainly where I'm putting my neurodivergent stuff out.
Amazing. I'll put links in the show notes. You can go check it out. Go and follow, guys. I love what you're putting out there. So, especially as a creative person, I just love following all of that. But thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this. Like you said, we've got to know each other a little bit before we chat anyway, which is always very helpful. But I always do that because I think it lends to a better show. But I've really loved my time with you. People often come back on. I love you to come back on because I think there's so much more we could have said here. And I just want to thank you for trusting in me and as your first experience of a podcast.
No, thank you. Yeah, I'll definitely love to come back on.
Amazing stuff.
Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody, for listening. We have many more guests coming up. I have some very exciting people coming up who are like my idols and heroes in the space. So I can't believe they said yes. I'm so excited. And I'm just so blessed to be on this journey. And I'm going to be an ADHD coach soon. I've started practicing clients this week and I've loved it. And I hope that anyone listening, maybe I can help you. Who knows? No pressure, but book in. No pressure. But yeah, I've loved it. So thank you, Dan. Thank you, everybody, for listening. And we will see you next time for some more ND chat. ND and Free is in partnership with Anque Mushroom Gummies. Since my ADHD diagnosis in October 2024, I had been trying to find a supplement to help my struggle to focus, ease my brain fog, and help my overall energy. I'd been getting mixed results from multiple supplements until I came across Anque's Mushroom Gummies. So I removed all other supplements and began to take 2 of the delicious tasting gummies each morning after eating. By the 4th week, I really started to notice I could focus for longer and my brain fog wasn't anywhere near as bad. It feels like I have a clearer mind. Naturally, they may not work for everybody, but I feel it's my mission to at least let you all know about these gummies. They include 10 functional mushrooms within them, including lion's mane, shiitake, and turkey tail mushrooms. With their non-GMO, gluten-free, and filler-free gummies, they offer a tasty solution to an ND brain. You can order one-off pouches with 60 gummies inside or sign up to the discounted monthly bundles. Best of all, if you use my code Owen15, you'll get 15% off your order. Visit www.anque.com and use code Owen15 at checkout. That is www.ankhway.com.